Let's be honest, Iron Man 2 didn't quite live up to expectations. However, had director Jon Favreau had his way, Iron Man 2 could have been a much darker, more mature, and potentially better film than the first one, in much the same way that The Dark Knight improved upon Batman Begins. So let's dive in and find out what went wrong and what could have been Iron Man 2. When Jon Favreau first signed on to direct Iron Man, he not only planned for the film to be the first in a trilogy, but he planned to oversee that trilogy too, directing each installment in much the same way Christopher Nolan would do for his Dark Knight trilogy. In the first version of the Iron Man script, Mandarin was written as the film's villain, with the idea that Obadiah Stane would become Ironmonger in the sequels. However, during a meeting between Favreau and various comic book writers to get feedback on the script, comic book writer Mark Millar argued against using Mandarin, feeling he was too fantastical for Favreau's more grounded approach to Iron Man. After a 10-second silence, which allegedly felt like an eternity, Favreau would agree, as the team would then proceed to rewrite the script to make Ironmonger the main villain instead, and save Mandarin for the second or third film.
And you'll never see me coming.
Later, Favreau would say, "I look at Mandarin more like how in Star Wars you had the Emperor, but Darth Vader is the guy you want to see fight. Then you work your way to the time when lightning bolts are shooting out of the fingers, and all that stuff could happen. But you can't have what happened in Return of the Jedi happen in A New Hope. You just can't do it." And while the first Iron Man is largely a standalone film with some teases and setups for a larger universe, the second film was criticized for taking that a little too far, with the film's primary storyline taking a backseat to setting up future movies. And there's a very good reason for this, and that's because Iron Man 2 was not originally supposed to be a part of Phase 1. In its place would have been an Edgar Wright-directed Ant-Man film. However, after that got delayed, and following Iron Man's enormous success and fan enthusiasm to Nick Fury's post-credit cameo, Marvel immediately greenlit a sequel, hoping to try and catch lightning in a bottle a second time, accelerating plans for an Avengers film while laying the groundwork for it in Iron Man 2. However, Favreau wanted to focus on his Iron Man trilogy and try to keep the stories more self-contained, as he was not enthusiastic about the idea of superhero crossovers and team-ups. And that's because the constantly shifting dynamics within the MCU made it virtually impossible for Favreau to plan ahead and map out a cohesive path for his Iron Man trilogy.
This isn't going to change what happened.
I don't care. He killed my mom.
As he'd say, in theory, Iron Man 3 is going to be a sequel or continuation of Thor, Hulk, Captain America, and Avengers. This whole world, I have no idea what it is. I don't think they do either, from conversations I've had with those guys. Compounding matters was the fact that Iron Man 2 was incredibly rushed, as only days following Iron Man 1's release and without consulting either Favreau or Downey, Marvel announced that a sequel would be coming in exactly 24 months, giving Favreau less time to make it than the first one. Contrast this with Christopher Nolan on his Batman trilogy, which would see Nolan not only take his time to craft each follow-up film, but also direct other movies like The Prestige and Inception in between each outing. Favreau, on the other hand, had no such luxury, which is why he was even hesitant to return at all. Plus, Marvel allegedly lowballed him, which led Favreau to hold out, feeling he deserved a significant raise after the enormous success of the first film. This stalemate and what were allegedly difficult negotiations would last 2 months, and also cost Favreau time he desperately needed to work on the film, as he'd now have 22 months to make it instead of 24. With Favreau signed on, and at Downey's insistence, they'd immediately hire actor and writer Justin Theroux, who wrote Tropic Thunder, the movie that earned Downey an Oscar nod, to pen the Iron Man 2 script. And while going into Iron Man 2, both Downey and Favreau were eager to adapt the famous Demon in a Bottle storyline, which sees Tony Stark battle alcoholism. Much to fans' disappointment, the film would never fully commit to it, and instead settle for a watered-down, half-hearted attempt at incorporating some of the storyline's elements. And there were several reasons for this. Firstly, Hancock had come out the same summer as Iron Man, and that film also saw its superhero protagonist turn to the bottle. Favreau, worried about the similarities to the Demon in a Bottle storyline, didn't want audiences to feel like he was copying Hancock. Not only that, but Marvel had major reservations about depicting their golden goose as an alcoholic, worried it would hurt the film's potential box office with younger audiences, as well as depress sales of toys and merchandise for the character. Writer Justin Theroux would go on to say, "A 13-year-old kid does not want to see drunken Tony Stark. We didn't want to do the Leaving Las Vegas version of Iron Man 2. A casualty of this was the film's original opening, which saw Stark drunk or hungover and vomiting in a toilet as he argues with Pepper before dropping into what we think is a highly dangerous mission, only for it to be revealed that it's the Stark Expo instead. Not only is this scene hilarious,
Give me some Advil.
I don't have Advil. I've got Motrin.
Motrin. I'm telling you, there was something seriously
Yes,
wrong
there is something seriously
with giving
wrong
a
with
grown
you.
man Motrin.
It's a
I'm not on my cycle,
It's
Pepper!
ibuprofen!
But it also establishes Stark's alcoholism
Yeah, you look like you look every day. You look like you have a hangover.
and anxiety being a superhero.
I'm not doing this mission!
We're not aborting the mission. Do you have any idea the level of coordination it took for the DOD to approve this?
Send him flowers.
Which frankly is what makes him so relatable and unique, setting him apart from other heroes in the genre. And the same goes for Downey himself, as one of the reasons he was cast and what made him perfect for the role was that the actor struggled for years with his own substance abuse issues before overcoming them.
1996, the actor violated his probation when he fled from a detox center, his rehab stemming from several drug and weapons arrests. But a judge sent him back. A year later, he skipped a court-ordered drug test and spent the next 4 months in the LA County Jail. 1999, Downey skipped another drug test and was sent back to rehab. But this time, a judge gave Downey hard time, state prison for nearly 1 year.
Allegedly, Downey's wife, Susan, who was an executive producer on the picture, also pushed back against the demon in the bottle plotline out of concerns that her husband would relapse while playing an alcoholic. The first Iron Man was famously made without a completed script. As Jeff Bridges would call it, a $200 million student film.
We would often come to work, and there would be no script for that scene today. And we would muster in my trailer with Favreau and Robert Downey and the suits, man, the guys from Marvel.
Right.
And we would sit in there, and I would say, okay, Robert, you play me, and I'll play your guy. So we change parts. Favreau would be calling writer friends of his. He said, here's the scene. Now, you got any ideas?
Goodness.
Meanwhile, the crew's in there tapping their foot, ready to go to work.
So you would think that on the sequel, they would have learned their lesson. Unfortunately, due to both the film's condensed shooting schedule in combination with Downey's constant ad-libbing and improvisation, meant they went into production not only without a finished script, but with an ever-changing one too. This meant writer Justin Theroux had to be on set for most of the shoot, revising enormous chunks of dialogue every night to fit what Downey had changed the story into because of his constant improving. To make matters worse, Marvel was much more hands-on this time too, and butted heads with Favreau repeatedly, forcing him to shoehorn plot threads into the film to set up the Avengers. Reportedly, both Favreau and Downey were unhappy about it, and the end result was not the film Favreau wanted to make, leaving some bad blood between Favreau, Marvel, and even Downey. This is also one of the reasons why Favreau wasn't asked back for Iron Man 3. However, the feeling was mutual, as Favreau didn't want to come back after his grueling and disappointing experience making the second film. And speaking of people that didn't come back, Terrence Howard would famously be replaced by Don Cheadle.
Look, it's me. I'm here to deal with it. Let's move on.
On the first film, Howard was the first actor cast, coming off his Academy Award-nominated performance in Hustle and Flow. But it may surprise you to learn that Favreau originally wanted to cast Don Cheadle instead.
Because really, initially, they wanted Don in that role. And my agent pushed me into the role.
And Howard's agent would net him a 3-picture deal and a $4.5 million payday for the first film. Whereas Downey, who was totally washed up at this point in his career, was paid a mere $500,000.
I did a movie called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Jon Favreau did a movie called Zathura. They both tanked, and we were both really hungry to try to do something that would make an impact. And when Iron Man came out, everyone that knew me and loved me said, this will do until The Dark Knight comes out.
And because of Downey's history and lack of star power at the time,
Oh, no, we're not ready for you yet, sir. Will you please go back out, wait with the others?
Marvel was very hesitant to cast him, leading Howard to allege that he offered to take a $1 million pay cut from his salary if they cast Downey. And while Howard was certainly no slouch in the finished cut of the film, it's clear that one of the main reasons for the film's success was Downey's incredible career-revitalizing performance, which is why for the sequel he asked for a much-deserved raise. Now, Terrence Howard will tell you that to pay Downey on the second film, Marvel cannibalized his salary.
The person that I helped become Iron Man, when it was time to re-up for the second one, took the money that was supposed to go to me and pushed me out. And I called my friend that I helped get the first job, and he didn't call me back for 3 months.
And while it's true that the studio did go to Howard's agent with a new and heavily reduced offer, the reason Howard gives, to pay Downey, is not exactly correct. On the first film, Favreau was unhappy with Howard's performance, and spent a lot of time during editing trying to find what he felt were usable takes of Howard, eventually recutting and reshooting scenes he was in. In addition to this, it's alleged that Howard was difficult to work with. As a result of this, on the second film, Favreau instructed writer Justin Theroux to minimize Colonel Rhodes' presence in the film. Once Marvel got wind of this, however, they didn't think it made sense to pay Howard even more than he made on the first film to appear in a significantly smaller role, and thus went to the actor with a lower salary offer.
Second time they came and they said, we think the movie would be successful with or without you, so instead of the $8 million that we've said we're going to pay you, we're going to let you come back for $1 million.
What exactly happened next isn't publicly known, but either Howard balked at the idea and quit, or was fired. The role would then be beefed back up before being offered to Don Cheadle, who would only have an hour to decide if he wanted to take it or not.
They called me, I was at my daughter's birthday party, a laser tag game, and it was a 6 or 7, I think 6 picture deal. And you do the math, that's like 12 years. I said, I'm at my daughter's birthday party. They said, well, we need you to do it in an hour. I'm like, I just got here. They're like, oh, take 2 hours.
And speaking of offers being given to actors, Emily Blunt was originally offered the role of Black Widow, but had no choice but to turn it down as she had scheduling conflicts with Gulliver's Travels, which she was contractually obligated to do. And you can tell she's still bitter about it to this day.
You were offered the role of Black Widow in the Marvel series.
Yeah.
And that's a great role for Scarlett Johansson, but that would have been a great role for you too, and a slam dunk big role.
Mm-hmm.
But you had to turn it down because you're so fucking busy that you were doing Gulliver's Travels at that point.
No. I actually do want to clean up the story on Gulliver's Travels. I was contracted to do Gulliver's Travels. I didn't want to do Gulliver's Travels.
Then there was Mickey Rourke, who, like Downey before him, also had revitalized his career coming off his Academy Award-nominated performance in The Wrestler. And just like Downey on the first film, Marvel was hesitant to cast him. Favreau, however, urged Marvel to trust him, just like they trusted him when he pushed for Downey, arguing that Rourke was perfect for the part of Vanko, precisely because his career path mirrored that of Downey's, which further served as a parallel to the similar journeys of both Vanko and Stark. After Downey spent the award season trying to convince Rourke to do it, he finally showed up for a meeting with 3 demands. His character had to keep his hair in a samurai bun, speak with a Russian accent, and he had to have a bird on his shoulder.
I want my bird.
A bird? You want a bird?
I want my bird.
I can get you a bird, I can get you 10 birds.
I want my bird.
All 3 demands would be met. However, Marvel wouldn't meet his salary demands, offering him a mere $250,000 for the part. After balking at it, Downey agreed to kick in a portion of his $10 million payday to help meet Rourke's asking price. From here, Rourke would pour himself into the role and steep himself in Russian prison culture. However, after he saw the film, he would be disappointed to learn that a lot of his scenes were left on the cutting room floor, and suggested that Favreau didn't have any balls for letting Marvel cut out the bulk of his performance.
The Marvel people ruined my performance in Iron Man. Yeah, they left all the good shit on the floor because they just wanted him to be a one-dimensional bad guy, and that's boring.
Rounding out the film's cast was Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, who was originally Favreau's first choice to play Tony Stark, but lost the role following Downey's incredible screen test.
How did Robert Downey Jr. become Iron Man?
It was God's will.
That's it, really?
Well, and a pretty good screen test.
You're never going to get me in the sack with that attitude. Crudité?
It's worth noting that in early versions of the Iron Man 2 script, Justin Hammer created different villains in addition to Whiplash, like Ghost, before the idea was scrapped. And unlike the version of Ghost we'd eventually get in Ant-Man and the Wasp, where her powers are a result of the quantum realm, Iron Man 2's version of Ghost would have stayed more true to the comics, with the character's powers coming from an advanced tech suit via Hammer Industries. Sam Jackson, who showed up in a cameo as Nick Fury at the end of the first film, almost didn't come back, which would have thrown a real wrench into Marvel's plans for building towards the Avengers.
Well, I only did it for like a few minutes, and I'm not real sure that I'm going to have the opportunity to do that again because we've been having some difficulty coming to an agreement.
Is it something that you would like to do again?
I would love to do it. I'm not sure that they would love for me to do it. It seems as though they're having money problems.
Oh, okay.
They're caught up in the economic crisis also.
Oh, yeah. Are we all?
Eventually, they come to terms, as it would have been a huge L for Marvel to introduce Sam Jackson as Nick Fury in Iron Man 1, only to have to recast him in the second film, especially considering what happened with recasting Terrence Howard and even eventually Edward Norton as the Hulk. Iron Man 2 also originally had a different ending to Stark's fight with Vanko. In the original ending, after Stark and Rhodes defeat Vanko and his drones, Vanko dies by suicide by blowing up his suit along with the defeated drones, hoping to take Stark, Rhodes, and Pepper down with him. He ends up failing on on all counts as Stark races to save Pepper, rescuing her in the nick of time. The original ending, however, sees Vanko hold Pepper hostage. To understand how they defeat him, though, we first have to go back to an earlier deleted scene that sees Tony toss a nanoball he created to Pepper, which would have been a nice bit of foreshadowing for how he eventually uses this technology to create his nanotech suit. Back to the original ending of Iron Man 2, which sees Pepper toss the nanoball to Tony to use to defeat Vanko. And while Favreau ended up changing the scene to add a little more action to the end of the film, had it stayed in, it would have been another example of how Tony constantly upgrades his suit after discovering its weaknesses in the field.
How'd you solve the icing problem?
Icing problem.
Even though Iron Man 2 received a mixed reception upon release, it was still a hit at the box office, and successfully laid the groundwork for the MCU. However, the cost of rushing it into production and using it as a launching pad for the Avengers meant sacrificing Favreau's vision for a proper trilogy. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Bullets and Blockbusters for more great content.